All right, everyone. Thanks very much for joining here. This is going to be the first in a series of webinars that I want to do for all the different members here. But given that we've made quite a bit of changes to the product here, I wanted to make sure that like today's session was very much focused on kind of hearing some feedback. I've got a number of different questions from people that thank you for reaching out that I'll make sure I cover. But also, live. Please do feel free to, raise your hand, throw something in the chat. I'd love to have some interactivity with this too. Um, I know the webinar is scheduled for an hour and a half, and I'm sure that seems like a very overwhelming amount of time. That was a sort of scheduling thing. I wanted to make sure we had the time on here. I'm honestly only hoping to go somewhere between 30 and 45 minutes because, like I said, I think, I want to engage much more regularly with everyone, all the different members of this community, no matter what you're here for, what you're trading. I do want to make this a much more regular thing. So I'm thinking that we kind of do these shorter but more frequently. Probably something like a monthly cadence. But I'll adapt that going forward. You'll hear from me about all that. So in terms of what I want to cover today, I'll give you sort of a heads up on sort of the quote unquote agenda that I have. But like I said, please do feel free to chime in. I want to take care of a couple housekeeping items up front. I want to talk about what the advice product looks like. I've got a bunch of different questions about what sort of the difference is there, client customer. Um, and then I have two specific reports that I really want to detail because I think, they're sort of some of the big changes that we have. One being the stock Intel report, the other is the Vol Cockpit. So we'll do a little bit of a deep dive on those two. And then the third kind of main topic will be a new way to think about expensive calls and puts. I know a lot of you are active users of the call and put reports, and so I wanted to spend some specific time on those. That's where I'm getting a lot of questions. So, with that in mind, I think I'll just go ahead and get started. I like I said, this is my first webinar, so I just want to make sure that the chat room is enabled, or at least everyone has access to the question and answer feature here. So the yes, if yeah, for the live attendees, please definitely throw questions in the Q&A section, and I'll take them along. Don't worry about interrupting me. It's very much meant to be interactive. So first off, in terms of housekeeping, a couple things I wanted to highlight. I mentioned that we'll be doing this much more regularly, webinars, but also the other piece of feedback that I've gotten from y'all over time is that there was interest in a chat room or some kind of forum that we could, converse more actively about the product here. And so if you didn't see my email about the Slack channel, I would definitely encourage everyone to go ahead and take a look at that. If you are interested in joining there, Slack, if you're not familiar with that, is basically a messaging product that allows us to have a couple different chat rooms. So I have a general chat room, I have a chat room for webinar questions, but then also each of the individual reports, we have a different channel to discuss those items. So if you are interested in doing that, Slack's a free application. The only thing I'll quote unquote warn you about is that for regulatory reasons, I do need to archive what gets said there. So the old joke we had at my firm was don't write anything you wouldn't want to see on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. In all seriousness, like you won't like this isn't getting published anywhere, but know that for compliance reasons, I do have to archive it. If you're interested in joining that community, everyone has access to the dashboard. So I'm navigating over here up top on the main dashboard in the community section in the bottom. You'll be able to enter an email and then open the Slack app with an invite. So Slack, because I want to keep it, a community of just people who are members here, I have to send private invite links and match that email that you use to log into Slack. Anyway, if you enter your email in there, open the Slack app, it'll start to permission you automatically for some of those different discussion channels. And very much welcome any kind of discussion. It's the kind of thing that I'll get to throughout the course of my day. Other members are, more than welcome to join and chime in and share strategy ideas. So, would love to see more participants in that community there. Housekeeping also on the kind of membership question front. This was something that I got a question from some folks about. Hey, I'm a member already. What can I do to upgrade here? I'm an expensive put subscriber. I like what's going on in the analyst package or maybe the investor package. What can I do here? And so, I'm happy to offer to anyone that's an existing client. If you have a current subscription, we will definitely commute that credit over to any upgrades that you're interested in. So if you're kind of on the fence, definitely know that if you have a credit in the bank, we'll happily apply those. And also a reminder, on top of that, the coupon code that I gave out, brand new tape, is still available. That'll be available through the end of the month. So any upgrades, lifetime 20% discount with that brand new tape uh, coupon code. Just trying to find somewhere I can type that. I will remind everyone in the email. I can't find that right now. Sorry. Um, but yeah, any other housekeeping questions? Happy to answer those. Throw them in the chat. Want to make sure everyone gets the details about all these different things. So then, without further ado, I'll move into some of the other questions and feature highlights that I've got on deck here. One of the biggest questions that I get about this product and kind of what's new here is the difference between the advice section and what that means compared to, the current screener reports. And without going into all the boring kind of regulatory details about all that, the idea is that the advice section is really where I get to distinguish you as someone who is a client of Harvested Financial, which is my registered investment firm. Previously, the tape was just a software product, and it still continues to be a software product that you can subscribe to without any, financial advice kind of connotation. It's a research tool, it's analytics, it's software, it's data analytics. And so the difference with that client overlay is that if you're able to complete a risk test and subscribe to the client package, that means I can give you customized advice. I somewhat have my hands tied for giving specific advice to individuals that are using this. I'm, able to talk about how to use the reports, how to think about them, even broadly different strategies that I think are interesting. But I can't say, hey, Bob, I suggest that you sell this specific call at this specific price. And so, really, what that advice section allows me to do is that once I've done a suitability evaluation, I, in conjunction with my algorithms, are able to provide specific advice for your objectives, your risk tolerance. And that comes in the form of specific trade recommendations for clients. And so, in addition to all the reports that exist now, the client package is an add-on to everything that exists. With the client package, you're able to truly get specific recommendations about which options to sell in the expensive put report or which buy right setups look interesting, leveraging the expensive call report. For the investor package, it even goes beyond that and provides overall model portfolio recommendations. So thinking about the big bucket that you might have in the investment world, how to think about, what percentage is appropriate for option strategies, and how within that options bucket, what types of overlays might make the most sense, what type of opportunity capture strategies, like, a short-term income strategy, what makes sense there, and then flowing down to what those specific trade recommendations are there. So really the client package is about that capital F, capital A financial advice that, once you've signed a contract and taken a risk test, the software is able to provide those specific recommendations. And I think that's really powerful. I don't really know of anyone else out there in the options space, or even in the software space, that's doing anything like that. That specifically for options, you don't have the robo digital advisor that you do for, general equity strategies. So I think this is a pretty unique offering, and I'm really excited that, honestly, this has been kind of my vision for this product for a long time. Um, so yeah, that's kind of, the difference between that client package versus generally just accessing the software. If you have any questions about that, I'd love to talk more about that. It's obviously, financial advice is a very personal thing. So I understand that people have questions about that. And just, do reach out to me, and we can set up some time to talk about what the differences are. I'm a little kind of hands tied about showing examples of that because, of course, financial advice is a somewhat personal thing, but I am always, willing to chat about what that means and what financial advice within the tape report looks like. So, um, if there are no more questions, on that front. I'll move into a highlight of the feature that I think is actually, one of the most exciting within this new toolkit, and that's the stock intel lab, or the stock intel report section. And so this is within the strategy laboratory. So that's something that's available for our investor members. And what this does is it combines the analytics that I haven't harvested, years of options data, years of, indicators that I built on top of that options data. So that might be a skew indicator, it might be a time spread indicator. For all of the most liquid issues, I've been tracking these indicators for years, and I've, a database of what skew in Apple has looked like at the 15 Delta call for going back, 5 years at this point. And it's that kind of data set, uh, along with a lot of my kind of perspective on the markets, how I want to think about it, what I want the analysis framework to look like, combined with research into live news data. And so I have an AI tool that I've built that essentially combines these sort of two data sources and overarching structure. So the proprietary data, the live news data, with a structured format of how to think about these. That's, also proprietary. That's, been developed here, and using those lenses and those components to automatically generate reports. And this was the kind of thing that it actually came out of another member suggestion. So thank you for that. Always open for suggestions. But I was frankly shocked myself at how useful I find this. In that I just this morning had someone asking me about, an overwrite strategy in a beleaguered financial company. And many of you can probably guess which that one is. But I was able to use this Intel report to uh, like immediately provide context about how to answer that question. So this is something that I'm using in my own trading every day. It's something that I can say, you know what? Rather than open up a bunch of browser tabs, look at all this news about Apple, I'm going to let the algorithm, the LLM, go in and consolidate all this information for me. So there, like I said, there's the proprietary vol context, all the indicators that we've built. There's a bunch of technical indicators. So we think about price movement. So, some of the technical indicators, like whether they're Bollinger Bands or, mean reversion or, drawdown over X period. We have a bunch of different true equity price, indicators. And then we combine in that live evidence layer of news. And given those three data sources and perspective, it'll produce research reports that are based on fundamental business concerns. So analyzing what the balance sheet looks like. It's instructed to go and look at the SEC Edgar database and find those 10Q reports, those filings that every company is required to make and all their risk disclosures. And it uses that for that fundamental analysis layer. We have a whitelisted set of trusted news sources. So, we're not just getting random blog posts about something. We look at specific trusted news sources. And, we have that vol profile lens too, that you can really double click on sort of the vol profile of a given ticker. Given that sort of target, will then layer on what your strategy might be here. So, are you interested in long-term compounding strategies? Are you interested in covered call writing? And you know, given those three things, essentially you can go in and request a report. Any given ticker, we have our most popular ones here, but then I'll show you sort of my list of reports that I've got here. Um, Oops, I guess I gave away that beleaguered financial company that many of us know. But this morning I was doing some work on Riley and considering what's been going on here and what, the context of just, recovering some equity out of this. Um, the reports tend to come in around 800 to 1,000 words. As you can see, we have a bunch of citations in terms of sources and evidence. So, like I mentioned, we've got the 10Qs, we've got the 8Ks, all these SEC forms for, disclosures that the company makes. So the stock intel feature, I absolutely think is one of kind of the most interesting new and leveraging new technology reports that we have. I'll just take a pause. Are there any questions about the stock intel report? Yeah. One point you probably saw up here, prior 20 days usage. What that means is for now, just while I kind of monitor what the overall usage is, we're limiting it to 20 reports within 20 days. That's something that I hope to be able to expand at some point in the future. But just being cognizant of the amount of tokens we're using in the space. And please, if you're running into that, don't hesitate to reach out. So yeah, the next report that I wanted to spend some time talking through was one of our edge screener reports. And that was, I'm sorry, this is not in the edge screen, it's in the dashboard. It's the vol cockpit. And so the Vol cockpit is kind of, I look at this as my like one-stop shop, to come in and see what's going on in the market. So, if I'm in the tape and, I can see the tickers going on along the top, that's great to see what, some of the big movers are. It's a fun little feature I like. Actually, speaking of that, if you're interested in a little snapshot, one little quick tip is to use that little camera icon in the upper right here. And you get a market snapshot. These are all the benchmark tickers that are in the ticker tape at the top. You'll see them on the dashboard, but you can see, where GLD is, where the VIX is, what SPX is doing today. Up 55 points yet again. So back to the Vol cockpit. Here we have up at the top the market dashboard, nice lens on the different indices, color coded for quick kind of check. Oil down, market up. That's been one of the themes we've seen. We look at the VIX complex. We look at what these different vol indicators are doing. whether that's the actual VIX itself, the 9-day version of the VIX, the 3-month version of the VIX, the vol of the VIX, all of that's in there, VIX futures. Really, as the name implies, this cockpit is designed to be that quick snapshot of what the market is doing. Um, there's a call out to the risk beacon here, and I will definitely encourage anyone watching or anyone that's catching up on this afterwards, take a look at the risk beacon because that's something that's for our investors in the strategy lab section. And by the way, if you're interested in demoing the investor package, please hit me up. I'm happy to give people demos. I know you want to see tools before you buy them. Of course, everything comes with a 7-day free trial. So that's one quick way to take a peek. But you can also reach out to me and I'm happy to give people previews so they get an idea about this. But the risk beacon actually uses all of these same indicators to create signals and alerts about when it might be a good time to hedge. So in a future episode, in a future webinar, we will definitely dig into what you can do with the risk beacon and kind of how you can use these indicators. We get into a lot of detail about what the structure of SPY looks like. All of these indicators that we're looking at here, these are the same metrics that I'm putting into that AI analytics. So the stock intel report is using all of these same data points, just a big data set of history, and it's analyzing them over time. So it's very coherent in terms of what you're looking at here is also what's driving the analysis. And my goal here with these reports is that what you're looking at and what you're seeing and the lens that I like to provide on the market is follows all the way through. That follows through whether you're in opportunity capture strategies, whether you're in long-term investment strategies, and or whether you're just researching and looking at reporting on the market. So all the different things with regards to the shape of the curve, the term structure of the curve. And by the way, we're looking at SPY right now. That's just a default. We can run this for any ticker out there. So you can look at the same thing for Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, Riley. All those are possibilities. Analyze how the price of the butterfly in SPY has changed over time. Um, Actually, an interesting one is skew. So this is the 20 delta skew. So the difference between the 20 delta put and the 10 delta put. Uh, Sorry, 20 delta put and 20 delta call. And that's saying that as we've gone down, it's very much flattened. So no surprise over the last 2 months, the difference between that put and that call, as the market's gone up, we've seen that skew go from 9 points all the way up as high in early March to 14 points. And now all the way down here, we're at 4.3 vol point differentials between that 20 delta put and that 20 delta call. And by the way, if you can't remember it, as you can see, even I get tripped up on describing these sometimes. That's what these tooltips are for. So just hover over any of the indicators and it will show you the put 20 delta implied volatility minus the call 20 delta implied volatility. And by the way, if you're interested in more charting capabilities, head over to the indicators chart because well, that on that dashboard is just showing a snapshot. Within the indicator chart, we have all kinds of potential to layer on a bunch of different indicators, comparisons between stocks. So all our vol indicators are here. We select different days to expiration. I'm going to turn off stock first and then show, actually, let's look at the 20. So this was that same 20 delta put, but instead of starting in February to present, we go back through the beginning of 2024. So 2 years of history on that here. And we can add a different ticker. So we might say, let's see what Apple 20 delta skew looks like compared to SPY 20 delta skew. So now I'm in Apple at 30 days. I'm going to select the 20 delta. And so now in blue, I have Apple compared to SPY in green. And as you'd expect, in panic times, things look very similar. This is April of 2025 during the whole kind of tariff tantrum period. Those spike together, but generally, SPY is going to have some of those higher highs and lower lows. Um, I'm sorry, Apple's going to have some of those higher highs and lower lows. So, not to get distracted here, but this indicator chart is, we had a little of that in the previous version of the tape, but there's really a lot of powerful charting, very powerful charting tools here. We're looking at all kinds of liquidity stats. We can do Bollinger Bands, volatility risk premium, all kinds of really good stuff in there. So going back to the vol cockpit though for a second, I just want to finish up on some of those other indicators because really, like, I think some of the biggest steps forward that we're talking about with the new version here has been the analytics around volatility. And whether that's displaying all these different VIX components, a lot more detail around some of these implied volatility and term structures. But thanks to Jay Soloff, a friend of all of ours, or many of ours, is we have a lot more detail into what's going on with volatility. So this is getting, pretty complex in terms of decomposing the vol and, the difference between volatility when the market's rising and volatility when the market's falling. You can really dig in very, very granularly here into what's going on. Vol risk premium is a very common one. I think a lot of people see that with the expensive calls and puts report. We've seen some VRP stats. Premium Condors uses that too. But in a lot of ways, this is kind of the next step deeper in terms of the difference between what the options are pricing and what the stock is realizing. Because at the end of the day, that's where you make money trading options. So Garch is another big suite of tools that talks about, the historical volatility. So, as much as we can decompose implied, we can also decompose how, historical and what the implications of that path and texture of historical volatility are. Yes, so the vol cockpit is available to everyone. So whether you have the expensive puts report only, or whether you have the analyst package or the investor package, everyone gets access to the vol cockpit. And that's the same thing as Trade Journal or really anything under the dashboard. So now I think I will move over to some of the edge screeners. And, I wanted to focus on these for the purposes of today because I think, that's some of the most popular reports. The expensive puts was kind of the sui generis for the tape. And so, of course, that's, an interesting and report near and dear to my heart. At first blush, a lot of things look very similar here. That we're looking at very much the same filter logic on the back end, as well as the same data displays in terms of what we're ranking and showing about each of the different tickers here. What's really changed, I think, has to do mostly with usability. And one of the big feature requests I always got was, can we see a stock chart? And so right now you can, quickly see a stock chart for any of these tickers. Just click that little chart icon just to the left of the name, and boom, you get a quick chart over what's been going on over the last 90 days. Anyone that's in the analyst package will, of course, have more history and more indicators that they can see in that indicator chart. But here we provide, a couple of kind of what I think are the most germane items looking back 90 days. Typically, that's the kind of time period most people are using expensive puts over. whether it's, a week-long trade, a month-long trade, we're generally concerned about the recent path of that stock. So we can throw some moving averages on here. We can put a Bollinger Band around that moving average. So, in orange, we have the moving average, and then the dotted lines would be the Bollinger Band. So, I think that's a pretty common technique in evaluating different expensive puts. Where might that put be relative to its 10-day moving average, one standard deviation Bollinger Band? One of the other features here, I mentioned VRP before, but if you're trading a short-term put strategy, a 10-day VRP is interesting to follow. Um, the pink line here is where we're seeing that VRP, spiking particularly high here because the stock hasn't moved that much. But then, dropping as we start to see different movement. So, where are we seeing, vol risk premium generally in um, SPC? Historical vol, also really important. Bunch of different intervals that you can compute it at. So, fun little, very quick view on what the stock price is doing. Another big feature here is the ability to trade it. And so I mentioned the trade journal briefly before there. This is something everyone has access to, and it's basically a better way to log your trades and keep track of what's been going on, but also set up some alerts for what's happening with your trade. So if you put on a trade, today is Thursday, and I put on something, yeah, it's actually just put defaulting for something for tomorrow, or sorry, for tomorrow. Yeah, for tomorrow, expiration 5/15, we, might want to get a notification about a stop loss or potentially a take profit. You can set up notifications about potential for this to close. The closing gives you X days in advance. So 2 days before expiration, a week before expiration on a longer trade, send me a notification of where my pricing's at now, or let me know, finally when this settles. And so all of this ends up getting stored in the trade journal. I think that's a really powerful feature for folks to keep track of what they're trading. A lot of these sliders over here are going to look mostly familiar, hopefully with a little better UI. We can adjust the delta range with these sliders. The dollar range I have a little bit more fluidly increasing, from across different price ranges. But actually, one of the most powerful new features, and this is something I literally just added in this morning, came from an idea, came from a conversation with someone, was that using a watch list, this is something I do manually, but I said, why shouldn't I just automate this? And so if you go over to your dashboard, you'll have the ability to see. uh, sorry, you'll have the ability to see your different watch lists out there. And so you can have up to 10 different watch lists. I have a default and I have a dividend aristocrats. And I can add tickers manually to those. So, let's say I want to add SPCE to this, boom, SPCE goes on my watch list. And that's just something you can keep track of the prices and changes throughout the day, tools like renaming them. But I think one that I just put in this morning was the dividend aristocrats. So if you're not familiar with these are names that have continually increased their dividends over a stretch of time. I forget the exact number of years that they're required to, but typically seen as relatively stable, long-term, growth type names. The idea here is that members can use their watch list on the dashboard to not only keep track of prices, but say, hey, that watch list is going to be now my filter for expensive puts. So I'm going to say there's the ability to filter from by individual tickers. You can still type in Apple and just get the Apple options that are expiring on Friday. Or by the way, any expiration. This is another. Uh, element that's been, I think, significantly improved in terms of selecting weekly expirations, or we have all the dailies here if you're interested in trading some of those stocks that have daily options. But you can do an individual ticker. I can enter in a comma separated list of tickers, and it would show me Apple and Microsoft, the two Apple calls that are in that 10 to 25 delta range. But then if I know I only always want to look at my dividend aristocrats, I can load that from my watch list, and copy paste, a comma separated list, and boom, now I have my own custom filter in expensive puts, same feature in expensive calls, for a list of names that rather than just going for, some of these ultra high volatility names that show up on the truly most expensive puts in the universe, if my strategy is more about selling puts in high quality names, I can use this watch list feature to provide a pre-screened list of names. There's no limit on the number of names you can put in there, but now I have a much more curated list of names that I'm looking at expensive puts for. So that I think is another really powerful feature of or upgrade to both these expensive calls and expensive puts reports. Uh, finally, this is actually a good point, John. There's the ability to save your configuration. So if you don't necessarily want to use the standard default configuration, so I'll reset my filters. The defaults, we have stuff less than $20 stock price, delta range 10 to 30. Very reasonable selection, but there are plenty of other ways to find expensive puts out there. You can actually say, you know what, my strategy is more, I'm willing to trade stocks up to $50 and I want to widen my delta range to go up to 40. If you save that configuration, see it's saved successfully in the upper right. Every time you come back to this page, it'll have your default configuration in there. So I'm sure I'm forgetting some, but usability, tweaks like that, those were a lot of the really important upgrades that we did here. And by the way, I'm always interested in more ideas and more features. For the most part, I believe that you can do anything with software. And the hundreds of minds that I have looking at this, y'all know much more than me. So please tell me what you think would be helpful and useful. So expensive calls, expensive puts, premium condors, most of these look pretty similar, just with a lot of feature enhancements. And going back to that conversation about what the difference between advice and regular customer member status, I'll highlight this briefly here with premium condors. And just to be clear, none of this is financial advice, but just to give you kind of a preview of what that might look like in reality. Within Premium Condors, we have very much the same setup of filtering. The default is our macro ETF tickers, our Qs, our SPYs, our IWM, TLT, GLD. And we have our macro tickers here, and it finds sort of the most expensive condors, on a risk reward basis, from a condor selling perspective. This is fine and very powerful for identifying things, but it's not exactly a strategy. And what the trade advice section does is it actually creates a strategy out of these. And it's a strategy that follows a systematic set of parameters and identifies within that structure what the best trades are at any given time. And so you can see that based on my risk tolerance for this specific account that I'm demoing with, it does say that technically conservative condors is not suitable for me. This is my demo account. I do a lot of different tests. So, but you will have those different flags to say, hey, and if I try to go to live trades, it's going to say, hey, this is beyond your risk level, just to really make sure that, everyone's going into anything clear-eyed. I'm not going to explicitly block anyone from seeing something, but I do want you to know, what based on, your risk test, what we deem appropriate. So, conservative condors is a strategy that is going to refresh every Thursday at noon. And the idea is on Thursdays at noon, we want to look about a month out and we want to sell index condors that are roughly 5% above spot and roughly puts 5% below spot. So, these are relatively conservative because, a 5% move, over 30 days, the last 30 days notwithstanding, is relatively infrequent. And so, this is generally, considered more conservative because, you're not selling something closer to the money that you're likely to have to roll and manage and adjust. So we look at so I want to proceed anyways. It's going to give us a QQQ offering and an SPY offering this week. And it gives very specific pieces of trade advice. It says, QQQ is 721 right now. For the June 12th expiry, that's closest to 30 days right now. These are the strikes, and that's the price that we believe has the highest probability, or within the targets, that's the one that we've evaluated to be the best. So we have a couple, sort of proprietary ways to sort across those. But it makes a very specific recommendation. And you can go ahead and click trade it. And this will go into your tracking. You'll get updates about that trade throughout its life cycle, recommendations about how to manage it. That trade will be recommended to you as suitable by, Harvested Financial. We have a couple different strategies in this. I kind of detailed the conservative condors one. We also have an aggressive condors. But yeah, thank you. The analysis tab. Yep, we're still going to proceed. So similar to what we see with stock intel, for clients, for the specific strategies, we do a little bit of a deep dive into what's going on with these specific tickers. So here with SPY and QQQ, we have a lot of different like vol analytics about what the implied volatility's done, how that might kind of impact the different strategies. But then, for the different expensive puts or expensive calls, you'll see similar. So short-term premium strategy, we might see, details about the four recommended tickers in the short-term premium strategy. Again, we'll see those specific live trades in here and, the context within the analysis tab of what's going to be useful. So, thank you. We're coming up on 45 minutes here, and I know I promised I wanted to keep these relatively short. Um, but I do want to take a moment and see if there are any questions that anyone has. You can send them to me directly as a private message, or feel free to use that Q&A section. Okay, so I just got the question is, what is the timing of the next webinar? So the timing of the next webinar, I haven't scheduled it yet. I expect to do these about monthly. And for all of our members, just so you know, there will be members only webinars. But then I'm also going to do some public webinars too. That'll be generally educational. Generally with these forums, I want to keep them relatively tight so I can, interact much more directly with you. But as, members, you'll also get invited to some of the broader, informational webinars that I'm doing also. So that coupon code is brand new tape. And that's good for 20% off over, for the lifetime of your subscription. So if you decide to sign up for the analyst package or investor package today, that brand new tape coupon will apply for the lifetime of your subscription. and that's only good through the end of May of this year. Any last questions? All right. Well, I know I have been talking a lot. I appreciate both, some of the questions we've gotten here live, as well as those who submitted some in advance. But thank you all for joining. I look forward to doing more of these. I would really encourage everyone to join the Slack channel. So again, at the bottom of your dashboard, if you want to use this community button, enter in your email, hit open Slack. Please join us over there. It'd be great to see you. It'd be great to get the discussion going. I think I'm only one person, but like I said before, the number of ideas that are in this community are fantastic. And everyone benefits when we share and discuss ideas. So please join us over there. Please join us on future webinars. And thanks so much for attending. If you have any questions, you know where to find me at mark@harvestedfinancial.com, or perhaps much easier is to head over to the feedback form on the main page there.